February 14th, 2018 was a typical day that ended in grief. See how a tragedy started a movement. Hear the perspectives of people who lived through the Parkland school shooting and witness the unfiltered reality of the incident through never-before-seen footage. This is the story of a town that has never been the same and of a new generation that is seeking change. On February 14th, 2018, a tragedy hit Parkland, Florida, when a gunman opened fire at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, killing 17 people and wounding 17. In addition to shocking the country, this horrific incident created a strong gun control movement that was spearheaded by the courageous students who survived. The Parkland murderous attacks turned into a turning point in American history, showing how quickly laws must be changed to protect school children and avoid similar incidents in the future. When the attacker reached Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, he was armed with a rifle, smoke grenades, and ammo. Shortly before the end of the school day, at 14:21, shots began to be fired. The gunman opened fire on rooms 1215, 1216, and 1214 before going back to 1216 and 1215. In an attempt to get people to evacuate the classrooms and congest the hallways, he activated the fire alarm. Because there had been a fire alarm practice earlier that day, many kids assumed it was an exercise, but then they heard gunfire. "I heard about 6 gunshots and then some people started running," student Jaela Dodu told CBS News at the time. "And then everyone started running because we were like, if it's real, then just run." According to Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel, the gunman opened fire on both kids and teachers, killing 3 people outside the school and 12 more inside one of the teaching buildings. 2 more people in nearby hospitals passed away from their wounds. Witnesses told how the 30-classroom block was filled with pupils who were hiding anywhere they could while gunfire erupted. Before the cops arrived, 16-year-old survivor Kyle Yoward claimed he spent almost 2 hours hiding in a storeroom with roughly 15 other kids and a teacher. The AR-15 rifle, which the gunman had lawfully purchased, and multiple ammunition magazines were found on him, according to the police. The mayhem and bewilderment as the horrific events transpired are captured in the initial 911 calls, reporting gunfire during the Parkland school shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School on February 14, 2018. The gunman, Nicholas Cruz, made his first 911 call 68 seconds after starting his assault. A student claims, "I think there's a shooter at the school," during one of the early calls, during which gunfire can be heard in the background. Confusion was increased at first since the operators had trouble comprehending the circumstances and the precise location. The 911 call tapes, made public by the Broward County Sheriff's Office, show the desperate attempts made by parents, students, and emergency dispatchers. A mother receiving information from her daughter, who was hiding in a classroom, makes for an especially unsettling call. While the mother attempted to calm her daughter, the dispatcher gave them instructions to remain silent and conceal. Along with recordings of 10 of the 81 calls its 911 center received during the shooting on February 14th, the Broward County Sheriff's Office released 12 minutes of radio communications from its deputies and the neighboring Coral Springs Police on Thursday. The sheriff also released a written timeline outlining how the radio calls correlated with what was seen on previously unreleased school security video. According to investigators, surveillance footage reveals suspect Nicholas Cruz firing an AR-15 assault rifle 15 seconds after entering the school's freshman building and continuing to do so for the next 6 minutes. The resource officer tasked with guarding the school, Deputy Scott Peterson, is located in the adjacent administrative building. Before he moves towards the shooting, it will take more than 90 seconds. Cruz opens fire, and 68 seconds later, the first 911 call is placed. 2 minutes later, the first responding deputies show up. The initial calls reveal the confusion of the operator. "There are shots at Stoneman Douglas. Someone is shooting up the school at Stoneman Douglas." A man inside the building, who may or may not be a student, whispers. "I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What's happening?" The dispatcher responds. "Someone is shooting up Marjory Stoneman Douglas." he whispers. She still can't hear him. Hello? 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 However, the Broward dispatchers soon develop a sense of discipline and begin issuing directives aimed at ensuring the pupil's safety. The same 911 center had dealt with a horrific shooting at the airport in Fort Lauderdale that resulted in 6 fatalities just 13 months prior. A man delivers information from a mother standing by him in a call that is carried from the neighboring Boca Raton and lasts more than 16 minutes. With her daughter, who is in a classroom with just one other girl, she is on a separate queue. They don't have enclosed desks or closets to hide behind. Before long, the man receives an order from the 911 operator to advise the girls to keep quiet and turn off their cell phones in case the gunman is approaching. The girl hears noises in the corridor and hears her mother encouraging her as the call goes on in the background. I love you. I love you. It's going to be fine if you hide somewhere. Can you play dead? You need to fake dead, the mother tells the girl. Officers stormed into the room a few seconds later, and the girls are safe. Tell them to pray. Tell them to pray for strength, the mother can be heard imploring her daughter. The call ends when the 2 girls are escorted outside. Oh my God, sighs the operator. Another mother on a 911 call hears her daughter's rescue, but then exclaims, 3 shots in her room. Oh my God, oh my God. The handling of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting on February 14, 2018, by the police has come under intense criticism. At 2:22 p.m., a 911 call was made about the gunshot, and at 2:25 p.m., the first Broward County Sheriff's deputy showed up on the scene. Scott Peterson, the school resource officer, arrived at the building but chose to wait outside instead of going inside. Officers worked to get staff and kids out of there, giving them instructions to either hide, remain silent, or leave, depending on the circumstances. Officers were guiding kids to safety and trying to keep the peace in the middle of the chaos. Approximately 2 miles from the school and approximately an hour after the incident, at 3:41 p.m., a police officer from a nearby town arrested Nicholas Cruz. Cruz had merged in with the escaping students and, during a stop at a McDonald's, was apprehended without any problems. After being brought to a neighboring hospital, he was turned over to police custody. Shooter. Arresting moments. Here's a complete body cam footage that was released by police after shooter arrest. The entire body cam footage of the Parkland school shooter Nicholas Cruz's arrest offers a close-up view of his detention by law enforcement. The crucial minutes that followed the horrific mass shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School on February 14, 2018, are shown in this video. Cruz is first seen in the footage by Coconut Creek police officer Michael Leonard in a Coral Springs residential area. Cruz is seen with a backpack and a maroon shirt on after leaving the scene of the incident. At gunpoint, Leonard commands Cruz to drop on the ground, and Cruz complies without protest. As the video comes to an end, Cruz is seen being taken to the Broward County Jail, where he will subsequently be charged with several crimes related to the massacre that left 17 people dead and numerous others injured. An important piece of evidence that has been used to comprehend Cruz's mental state and the prompt responses made by law enforcement in the wake of one of the bloodiest school massacres in American history is this body cam video. When questioned by a detective, Cruz later brought up demons and voices again. Whimpering could be heard from the confessed shooter in other parts of the body camera footage before he was taken to the Broward County Jail. Cruz was expected to go to trial in 2020. The Sandy Hook Elementary School tragedy in Newtown, Connecticut in 2012 claimed the lives of 20 young children and 6 adults. At the time, the Parkland attack was the deadliest school shooting since then. Since then, a shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, on May 24, 2022, which left an 18-year-old gunman dead and 18 injured, has eclipsed the original death toll. The shooter killed 21 people, including 19 young pupils and 2 instructors. Police Sergeant Jeff Heinrich recounted calling his wife and son, who were in the school, on the day of the Florida school shooting, after assisting in rescuing victims. The Parkland tragedy permanently changed the community in which it occurred, just like any other school shooting does. However, the effects of the school, its pupils, and the victims' friends and relatives were felt well outside of South Florida. This is due to the fact that many of the survivors started engaging lawmakers about gun control reform as soon as they could. This tragedy will forever be with us. Broward School's Superintendent Robert W. Runcie told reporters outside the school Friday morning, "But as a community, I can tell you, the students have expressed a tremendous amount of courage, resiliency." On Wednesday, a student who survived the Parkland school incident showed a Florida court the wounds from the 5 shots that defendant Nicholas Cruz fired at him. The state called several witnesses and former students who were there during the Valentine's Day shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in 2018 to testify during the 3rd day of the Parkland shooter trial. The shooting claimed the lives of 17 people. He clearly showed scars on his body. It was a clear evidence against shooter. On November 2, 2022, Judge Elizabeth Scherer pronounced the sentencing for Nicholas Cruz. It was a solemn moment as she addressed the courtroom, her words weighted with the gravity of the tragedy that had unfolded. Among those present were families who had lost loved ones, including Joaquin Oliver, the cherished son of Nicholas Cruz.
"You're going to die before me. And I will celebrate when you die. I heard you saying that you don't want to suffer. You don't like painful things. You understand that you will suffer and you will go through pain, a lot of pain. It would be much easier die like a king in a supervised way that everything goes. I wish I could die like that. That's not your future anymore. A lot of pain, a lot of suffering, and someone will replace your fame. And I'm closing this chapter today."
As the proceedings unfolded, the courtroom held its breath, each moment etching itself into the memory of those present, a stark reminder of the profound impact of that fateful day. Following 2 days of in-person meetings with Cruz, parents, spouses, siblings, and other relatives of the deceased, as well as some of the living, the sentence was handed down. Chris Hickson, the athletic director for Thomas Hickson, was shot when he charged at Cruz after breaking through a door and attempting to stop him. After the injured Navy veteran attempted to hide in an alcove after falling to the ground, Cruz approached and fired another shot at him. Veteran of the Marine Corps, Thomas Hickson recounted on Tuesday that Cruz expressed regret when he entered a guilty plea to the killings a year prior, paving the way for the sentencing trial. "Where was your remorse when you saw my father injured and bleeding on the floor and decided to shoot him for a 3rd time?" Hickson told Cruz. "Your defense preyed on the idea of your humanity, but you had none for those you encountered on February 14. You deserve the opportunity to rot away," David Al-Hadef, the uncle of Alyssa Al-Hadef, told Cruz via Zoom from his classroom in Maryland. "You deserve the opportunity to absorb the look of terror on your face once you leave this courtroom. You deserve the opportunity of knowing that justice will prevail at some point, causing you great anguish, minute by minute, day by day." Following the horrific Parkland school shooting, the community was left in shock at the senseless deaths and the lasting effects of the carnage that took place inside Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. The focus of investigation shifted to Nicholas Cruz, the shooter at the Parkland school, as detectives dug into his past. Cruz's difficult background, history of behavioral problems, and contacts with mental health specialists were all described in detail in reports that surfaced. Questions concerning the effectiveness of mental health support systems and the necessity of early intervention efforts to treat individuals at risk of violence appeared as facts of his problematic past became public. The Parkland school shooting was thoroughly investigated by law enforcement, including the FBI and local police. To acquire a complete picture of what happened before and after the shooting, They carefully put together evidence from the crime scene, spoke with witnesses and survivors, and examined digital records. Critical information about Cruz's behavior, movements, and any possible warning signs that might have gone unnoticed or unreported was provided by police and FBI records. Infuriating and upsetting many of the relatives of the 17 people he killed, the jury failed to unanimously recommend the death penalty, and as a result, the gunman who carried out the Parkland school shooting was legally sentenced to life in prison without the chance of release. Nicholas Cruz, 24, was found guilty on 17 charges of murder. On Wednesday, Broward Circuit Judge Elizabeth Scherer imposed the statutorily required punishment, dictating that he serve a life term without the possibility of parole for each of the crimes, with the sentences to run consecutively.
Previously waived, then there was some discussion about whether it could be in a death penalty case, but the defense is maintaining their waiver of a PSI. Mr. Cruz, you're still under oath. Are you in agreement that you're not asking for a PSI in this case? Okay. Is there anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, he's remanded to the custody of the Department of Corrections. And he's to be given credit in the amount of 1,718 days time served.
In addition, Scherer sentenced 14 of the 17 attempted murder offenses to life in prison with a minimum of 20 years to serve, and the remaining 3 counts to life in prison without the possibility of release. The court decided that each count would proceed in order. The judge ruled that Cruz will not be entitled to any financial gain at all from the crimes he committed under Florida law. Additionally, Scherer garnished his commissary funds until all fees and damages were covered. My hope for you is that you are miserable for the rest of your pathetic life, Lori Alhadeff added. My hope for you is that the pain of what you did to my family burns and traumatizes you every day. Cruz entered a guilty plea to 17 counts of murder and 17 counts of attempted murder in relation to the massacre last year. The incident is still the bloodiest mass shooting at a U.S. high school, despite the ongoing gun violence epidemic in the country. Legislative and policy changes after Parkland shooting. The horrific Parkland school massacre shocked the country and prompted important modifications to laws and policies meant to stop future occurrences of this kind. Following the tragedy, a number of initiatives pertaining to gun control, school safety, and mental health support were submitted by state and federal lawmakers.
Of the debate on guns and gun control, and to really focus their energy on school safety, on discipline programs that could prevent.
Calls for tighter gun control measures have intensified since the Parkland tragedy reopened the discussion over gun restrictions in the U.S. As a result, a number of states passed additional gun control legislation, including restrictions on assault weapons, increased background checks, and capacity restrictions on magazines. At the federal level, initiatives were undertaken to close loopholes that let people to get firearms without the required screening procedures and to reinforce the current gun control regulations.
In the state of Florida, it is now illegal for an 18 to 21-year-old to purchase a rifle after the shooting. It was a bill that was passed by a Republican-led chamber and a Republican governor. At the federal level, there's been a little bit less in terms of significant legislation, although there has been bills related to school safety and increasing federal funding to make schools secure for future mass shootings. They want gun control, they want an assault weapons ban, they want to limit the amount of bullets that a gun can fire before it's reloaded. For others,
numerous states have passed new rules and measures to enhance school safety and security by safeguarding faculty and kids from possible threats. Enhanced training for school staff on emergency response procedures, more funding for school resource officers, and the installation of security upgrades like video cameras and bulletproof glass were some of these efforts. The need of early intervention and assistance for people dealing with mental health concerns was acknowledged by policymakers, who increased funding for mental health services in communities and schools. There have been initiatives to improve mental health education and awareness programs, increase access to counseling and therapy, and fortify relationships between law enforcement, mental health providers, and educational institutions. In order to recognize and address possible threats before they materialize into violent acts, efforts were undertaken to strengthen threat assessment protocols and school discipline regulations. Schools put in place procedures for identifying and handling threats of violence or self-harm, as well as tactics to encourage good behavior and conflict resolution abilities. Following the Parkland tragedy, grassroots organizations and advocacy groups came together to push for legislative changes and increase public awareness of the need for all-encompassing approaches to ending gun violence. Initiatives were started to get legislators involved, organize neighborhoods, and provide youth the tools they need to take an active role in the movement for change.
Those who were there, those posting, those tweeting, those doing interviews and talking to people are being listened to for what feels like the very first time about this topic that has come up over 1,000 times in the past 4 years alone. I found out today that there's a website called shootingtracker.com. Nothing in the title suggests that it is exclusively tracking the USA's shootings, and yet, does it need to address that? Because Australia had one mass shooting in 1999 and Port Arthur massacre introduced gun safety, and they haven't had one since. Japan has never had a mass shooting. Canada has had 3, and the UK had 1, and they both introduced gun control, and yet here we are with websites dedicated to recording these tragedies so that they can be formulated into statistics at your convenience. I watched an interview this morning and noticed that one of the questions was, do you think your children will have to go through other school shooter drills? And our response is that our neighbors.
Emma Gonzalez, a student at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, emerged as a powerful voice in the aftermath of the tragic mass shooting that claimed 17 lives on February 14, 2018. Just days after the tragedy, Gonzalez addressed a large crowd at an anti-gun rally in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, delivering a speech that captured national attention and galvanized the movement for stricter gun control laws. In her impassioned address, Gonzalez directly called out President Donald Trump and the National Rifle Association, NRA, holding them accountable for their roles in the perpetuation of gun violence in the United States. She criticized Trump for accepting contributions from the NRA, highlighting the financial influence the organization wielded over political leaders and questioning their commitment to the safety of American citizens. Gonzalez's speech was marked by her raw emotion and unwavering resolve. She famously declared, "We call BS," in response to the arguments commonly made against gun control measures, such as the notion that stricter laws infringe upon Second Amendment rights, or that mental illness is the primary cause of mass shootings. Her powerful rhetoric and direct approach resonated with many, sparking a wave of activism among young people and reigniting the national debate over gun laws. Her advocacy, along with that of her fellow students, led to the organization of the March for Our Lives movement, which staged one of the largest youth-led protests in U.S. history in Washington, D.C., and across the globe. Gonzalez's ability to channel her grief and anger into a force for change made her a symbol of resilience and a catalyst for a renewed conversation about gun control in America. In the wake of the Parkland school shooting, significant legislative and policy changes were enacted at both state and federal levels to address gun violence and improve school safety. In Florida, the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act was swiftly passed, marking a notable shift in the state's gun laws. This legislation raised the minimum age for purchasing firearms from 18 to 21, imposed a 3-day waiting period for most firearm purchases, and banned bump stocks. It also allocated substantial funds for mental health services and school security measures, including the controversial Guardian program, which allows trained school staff to carry firearms. At the federal level, the Fix NICS Act was passed, aiming to strengthen the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, NICS, by ensuring more comprehensive reporting of criminal records by federal agencies and incentivizing states to improve their data submissions. Additionally, the Stop School Violence Act provided funding for violence prevention programs in schools. These measures collectively represented a significant response to the tragedy, reflecting a growing recognition of the need for more stringent gun control and enhanced school safety protocols. As we remember the lives lost and the bravery shown on that tragic day, let us also honor the resilience and strength of the Parkland community. Their voices have sparked a nationwide call for change, proving that from tragedy can come powerful movement. If you found this documentary impactful, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories that matter. And join us in supporting efforts to make our schools safer. Thank you for watching.